Today's webinar is brought to you by PropFuel and Member Junction. So you'll be learning a little bit more about what we do, but this isn't a sales pitch for PropFuel and Member Junction. What we're here to tell you about is next generation member engagement, AI-powered personalization at scale. Before we get into the agenda, we'll go ahead and do some introductions. So I'm Cameron Abishan. I'm co-founder and CTO at PropFuel. I'm coming to you today from the PropFuel office in Atlanta, Georgia. So happy to be with you. A little bit of my background. This is my second company in the association space. I've spent my whole professional career here, which is getting to be longer than I want to admit. But definitely been hanging around the association space on the vendor side. Excited to talk to you today about what we have going on and kind of what the future looks like. And today I'm presenting with Chad Stewart. Chad, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Cameron. My background, I'm actually the head of partnerships and growth with Member Junction. In my background, I've been in the association space for about 20 years. And during that time, I've been very blessed, very fortunate, if you will, to work with a lot of probably hundreds of associations to help them through the process of evaluating technology, making decisions about it, implementing, as well as acting as a guide and advocate for them as they move forward and determining what their tech stack is and should be in order to achieve their mission, vision, and goals. And I participated in many projects on the strategic side. So today I'm very excited about talking a little bit about how hyper-personalization impacts and should impact the thinking of the organization as it relates to growing and increasing mind share and awareness by your members. So I've been primarily involved in the AMS space mostly. However, have worked in a lot of different technology, and marketing has always been one of my big areas of interest, if you will. And I'm very, very excited to be here, Cameron.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. Let's get into our agenda for today. So some of the topics we're going to be covering, we're going to start with what are some challenges that you all are facing with the way that data is working today. We have a handful of those identified we're going to talk about. Hopefully some of these resonate with you. This is a conversation I have with clients day in and day out, is just the constant challenges of working with data in the way that things are organized in our systems today. Our next topic is going to be how to obtain hyper-focused personalization. So how do we take advantage of all that data and actually do stuff with it? Data is only good if it's in action. It's not good just sitting in a database somewhere. We're going to cover some examples, some work that we've each done with clients in the association space, as well as some sample tools. And hopefully you guys come out of this with a few ideas for how you can make your member experience more personalized, more relevant to your members, and ultimately how you can serve them better. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, please pop those in the chat, and Chad and I will keep an eye on those and try and answer them as they come up. And also feel free to talk amongst yourselves as we're going through these slides. But to start off, Chad, why don't you kick us off with data challenge number 1?
Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I want to be clear about something today. We're focused in on hyper-personalization. So I think it's important to talk a little bit before we get into the details of, we're not focused just on personalization, which is something a lot of the organizations, the association world has been dealing with. But I always like to think of personalization as basically the ability to, use what you have done, if you will, on a member in the basic aspects of data, whereas hyper-personalization is more of what you've done, what you're doing right now, perhaps as a member, and also what you're likely to do next. So it's really predictive. And so in other words, hyper-personalization is really aims to kind of understand the moment, the exact moment of each individual, and get them to a point where they'd like to be, if you will, and kind of anticipate that. Okay, so that being said, I think it's really important to talk about overall, there's quite a few things as we think about the challenges of data or the world of data that we live in the association space. And as I mentioned before, I've been involved in working with a lot of associations as they deal with this tech stack that they have, namely what most people consider their universe, if you will, which is the AMS or CRM. And oftentimes when I go through initially and done the assessments and selection, I've always asked on the strategic side, basically, how do you feel about your data? And invariably, I always get a response, which is likely pretty lukewarm at best in response to how they feel about it. There, you might get some, oh, it's okay, or it's okay here, but not necessarily everywhere, meaning they have a multitude of different systems. And the impact of data quality is quite dramatic. And I have studied this quite some time because it's dear to my heart. And you can look at a lot of different studies. In fact, you probably even, Google something or actually go to Gemini or whatever LLM you like and ask. But I looked at one stat years ago and I kind of did a little investigation on it. But data quality for the Fortune 1000 cost, $12.9 million. Now that's kind of a staggering stat when you think about it. So I dug into it and started thinking about my clients that I've worked with over the years. Even if you go down to what you kind of determine as a percentage of the impact, data quality is somewhere about 10 to 15% in the negative as it relates to an organization. So you could realistically look at hundreds of thousands of dollars if you look through the impact of data quality. So bad data is absolutely critical for you to address. So having said that, when you think about most people today, when they think about, you know, in essence, where they kind of think about data, it's usually in the area of member profiles. So going back to the idea, today, quite frankly, a lot of people are using a lot of different systems. And honestly, there's a lot of points of entry of data being collected, whether that be a form here in your registration system, or maybe when they actually renew or sign up, you've got a lot of collection points, or even the staff, going in the event registration system or membership system, if you don't have it connected in your AMS. And you've got a lot of points whereby which data quality can be impacted. This is just a basic example of an impact area if you just look at a name. But quite frankly, it's more than just names when we deal with data quality as it relates to hyper personalization. So you're going to want to include transactional information, financials, in addition to other sentiment analysis that you collect on people in order for to really get a good idea of the data quality that you have. That being said, when you think about the next thing, Cameron, the next slide, it also contributes to basically what I refer to as kind of incomplete data. And one of the things with incomplete data that's really impactful, it goes back to all the different systems, is everybody has a different form or way by which that information that they care about is inside of a system. So you may not want to include everything about a member or have data about a member in one system that may not be important for that particular use case, i.e. if it's in the LMS, it's not going to have all the things that you can have in the AMS, et cetera. So incomplete data sets in general is really very impactful because you need to fill out the data gaps over time, likely, in order to get to where you need to be to actually feel like you truly have a complete idea of your members or your constituents so that you can understand them and allow that to actually come to life so that you can get the actions that you would like out of the various communications that you do or actions that you take or money that you spend on different things. So it's real important to build out complete data. And it's a big challenge for a lot of people because of the world that we live in today that contributes to incomplete data.
I think one of the things to keep in mind with incomplete data is like, why is it actually important to have full member profiles? We all, we intuitively know like it would be great if everybody filled out their member profile. We also know the challenge that comes with that, and that you have a sign up form for someone to join your association. You can't put 42 fields on that form, even if you would love 42 pieces of information about all of your members. Your conversion rates are going to tank. So there's this constant trade-off of, okay, we have to ask for as little information up front as we possibly can, so that the conversion rate on our membership sign up form is high, because people aren't going to sit there and fill out every little detail of their lives when they sign up. So then you have this battle of, hey, I would love for people to go log into the AMS and fill in the rest of the fields. Nobody's actually going to, very few people actually do that. But where that comes into play is you have people who are joining your association and becoming members, but you may only have very little data on them. And what ends up happening is you want to provide a highly personalized experience. but you can't because you don't know enough about them. And the way that we like to talk about the importance of personalization is really the more data you have, the more personalized experience you can create for your members. That seems fairly obvious, but it's worth kind of covering the basics here. And why that's important is I don't know about you guys, but I start every single workday essentially uh, spending 15 minutes or so going through my email inbox, which is accumulated, 100 random emails, and I need to go through each one. And in about a half of a second, I determine, hey, is this relevant to me or not? Everyone has developed these complex filters that we use to decide who gets to have our attention. And it's your job as an association membership or marketing person to be able to craft a message that gets past that filter. And in order to do that, we need to have highly personalized, and not just highly personalized as in, hey, we know this stuff about you, so we're going to put your first name on the email subject. Everybody does that now. That doesn't get past anybody's filter. It needs to be highly personalized, as in this thing that you're sending me meets my needs as a member and is actually relevant to me. An example of this is, let's say you're a education provider, let's say a bar association who's holding an event. You're, the California Bar Association, to take a test case example here. So you want to market an event that's happening in person in Los Angeles next month. So you could send that to all of your members, all your current members, but the person in Sacramento is not going to be interested in the event in Los Angeles. So now we want to keep filtering this down and getting more and more relevant. So we start with all current members. Then we want to be able to say, actually, let's only send this to the people who are in Los Angeles. Okay, this is a bankruptcy law course. Let's only send this to people who practice bankruptcy law. And we know if people prefer in-person learning, so we're going to only send it to people who prefer that versus online learning. We also want to target only the people who have a high customer satisfaction rating with our previous courses. We want to really target people who are short on CLE hours. And you can see how adding all these layers of relevance to this person is, if you can get to the point where you can look at your membership list and say, hey, who are the people who meet these criteria? You have a super highly relevant thing to provide to them. Uh, Take that experience of, hey, here's this thing that's right up your alley and you're super interested in, versus here's a list of our 20 programs that are happening all over the state next month. You can see which one's going to have more engagement, which one's more likely to get past the filter. And each of these points here is a, essentially piece of profile information that you may or may not have. So we'll talk about some solutions down the line to this, but you can start to imagine, how are we going to get to the point where we actually have all this information on all of our people so that we can personalize to this extent. So that's really an illustrative picture of kind of where incomplete data becomes a challenge. And this kind of goes hand in hand, like Chad was saying earlier, with another challenge that Chad's going to take you through, which is siloed data. And maybe you have the information, but it's all over the place. So how can you work with it? So Chad, you want to take that one?
Yep, absolutely. So I like the thought process, or just think about, or imagine, swimming in data but starving for insights. I think that's oftentimes what people kind of are faced with, if you will. And your association's data is and should be looked at as very valuable asset. And it's also trapped or disconnected, if you will, from as you were alluded to, Cameron, different or disconnected systems. And many of the things that you see right here are, likely systems that you probably have come to contact with, or maybe using, if you will, over the years that you're experiencing in the association space. And it's a tangled web we weave, if you will. And oftentimes when I talk to folks about, going through the assessment or selection project that I've done in the past, and it's like the CEO wants member data that is in the AMS system, but for a Monday meeting, if you will, the event person has some insights that he also wants to get to, as well as in the education side of things, that he may have some insights he wants there. And he wants to collate something that he can do some type of exercise on to understand for the next board meeting, if you will. And the fact fragmentation in of itself is a challenge, because he's got to go to 3 different people in order to get insights, in order to make decisions or to plan for that next meeting. And this doesn't have to be at the executive level, but it could be anybody. And so in order for you to get a clear picture, if you will, you've got to have a way by which to pull that data together. And it's not, basically just the data systems that you think about in terms of enterprise systems. So I've already included, a couple of acronyms that we deal with, but there's more and more acronyms that are probably coming to play. But more importantly, it's more. It's like, what about the data that is in social media? When you think about when you get into a desire to do true hyper personalization, you have to include many other data sets in order to really truly get an understanding of what people care about, and again, what they may care about more importantly. So what you see on the screen now is sources of data. There are tons and tons of sources of data that might be applicable in order for you to basically, as a marketing or membership executive, to basically understand and actually use that data for an outcome that you seek, whether that's getting people into seats at a conference, matching up people to be more in line with others in your community so that they can grab those attentions from one another and actually learn from one another, or whatever outcome that you seek. I mean, third party data is another thing. We have clients that are basically using data from state sources or federal sources that they include so that they can prepare and use understandings of insights for benchmarking reports and in tailoring messaging to specific audiences. So it's not just what we think about data sources. And in that last screen, we're kind of focusing on what we know about, which is these standard apps, that, if you will, that you use. But there's so many other data sets that could be applicable. Not to mention, in the next slide, is basically it's about the aspect of trying to pull that data together, as I mentioned before. So the impact of siloed data, if you will, is really quite compelling in terms of a obstacle or a challenge that you have to address. Because even though you may have access to those points, again, being points that you can get to, you can't collate them or pull them together in a meaningful way by which a person or persons can actually do. And so you need something else, i.e., tools that are available to us, such as AI, to do those things. So the next slide, if you will, is all about enriching the data. This goes back to the idea of how do you get more and more as you have experiences with individual members, if you will, that complete out the understanding. And it's got to be a constant, feed or drip, if you will, of collection, because you can't, startle them all at once or make them abandon a cart or a transaction if you're trying to get everything all at once. So you got to enrich data in a smart, intelligent way and pull things in that you can into the mix as you think about the next step that you want to do. So you got to complete or enrich it through various sources and then basically be able to leverage it in the most logical and educated way. Next slide.
Yeah, so let's now that we've kind of laid the groundwork with some of the challenges that you guys are facing and that we see in the market, and I'd encourage you guys in the chat if you have any other data problems, I'd love to see those in the chat. Just some ideas around, what are the other things you guys, challenges you guys are facing when it comes to managing your data? If any of those three really resonated with you, or if you have other suggestions, we'd love to see that in the chat. But let's look forward. What can we do about this? We all kind of recognize, yeah, our data is not exactly where we want it, but how can we fix that? How can we move forward? And then also, okay, what is opened up to us if we do move forward? So the first thing I want to do here is just kind of look ahead to driving personalization. And one of the things I always like to talk about when we talk about personalization is there's a expectation that people have now that businesses or associations, anyone they deal with, is going to be able to provide a personalized experience. 10, 15 years ago, this was a new concept, and everybody's amazed that you can open up Amazon and they'll show you things that you probably want. And you can open up Instagram and they seem to know exactly what kind of shirts you like to buy. And but now that's just how the world works. Everyone's used to this highly personalized experience, and we need to be delivering it, or someone else will, when it comes to the things that we're offering our members. However, in order to do that, I like to point out that just having data in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to deliver a good, highly personalized experience. In fact, there's a whole bucket of, and we'll walk through a couple of examples here of trying to provide a personalized experience when you have low insight into someone. So maybe you have a handful of data points, but you don't have enough data and you don't have the right data, and you're making these huge extrapolations and you're still trying to personalize their experience, but it leads to a essentially even worse experience than if you didn't try and personalize at all. A couple examples, and I think you guys will kind of know what this looks like from your own experience as well. This is an example I always like to use. This is a few years ago. I bought a new patio door at Home Depot. And Home Depot decided, in their wisdom and desire to personalize my experience shopping with them, that I must be a collector of patio doors, and I clearly needed more. So over the next 6 months, I get email after email. Hey, look at these patio doors. Look at these patio doors. You can see what data point led them to decide, like, this is the thing we should try and sell this guy. It's, I bought a patio door. But there's no insight there. I, in fact, only have one patio that needs a door. I don't need 8 patio doors. I don't even need two. So there's that insight of just stepping back and looking at the whole picture of this person. Yes, they bought this one thing. Are they likely to need it again? That's a question that needs to be asked. And you can see how having a more complete profile could help fill that out. Where if I am a contractor, maybe I'm a patio door installer. Maybe I've bought 5 patio doors in the last 2 months and I'm going to keep buying more. But in my case, I'm a homeowner, probably only have one patio door. We should probably try and sell something that's maybe related to patio doors, but not the door itself. I don't need that. Here's a tweet I saved years ago. I think we've all experienced this one. Dear Amazon, I bought a toilet seat because I needed one. I don't collect them. I'm not an addict. You can keep emailing me over and over again. I'm not going to just get one more toilet seat. We've all seen these attempts at like low insight, throw stuff against the wall personalization. But you can see how technology is now enabling us. If you think about, okay, 5 years ago, I had a very basic recommendation algorithm that was able to say, hey, this person bought this one thing. They'll probably buy it again if I keep telling them. Now, if you went into ChatGPT and said, hey, ChatGPT, this person bought a patio door. What should I sell them next? It's not going to recommend selling me another patio door. It's going to recommend blinds or door seals or trim or whatever. So you can see how this kind of the combination of knowing more about people and the advances in technology lead to the ability to have not just personalization, but high insight personalization, which is ultimately what we're really after and what's going to be the best member experience for your association. So now let's talk through kind of 3 actions that we can take today to move us along this spectrum and get more towards that high insight personalization that we're after.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, just before I get too much into the data unification, obviously I think that's a byproduct of everything that you just heard, as it relates to the challenges. But I want to stress that, marketing is not about, and it's going back to what you just, about reaching the masses. It's about reaching the moment that they're at, if you will. How can you get to the point where they know that they are relevant, they matter, by the communication that you have? You have that opportunity today to basically pull data together in a much more manageable way so that you can turn that data into deeper connections with your members. So how do you do that? You have to have a place to park it, i.e. a junction point that basically allows you the opportunity to pull things together. There's a lot of different ways out there, and some of you may actually leverage a data warehouse or a data lake or something of that nature. But oftentimes what we see is those very restrictive. And so there's a better way, we think, and data unification is and should be an ultimate goal that you have. And it can be elusive because a lot of people, we hear this, and I don't want to, downplay any AMS providers or any CRM providers for that matter, but it's a very elusive goal that they state that we provide a 360-degree view of our customer. Quite frankly, I've been in this business for over 20 years, and to this date, it's still very difficult to get to truly that without having all the systems do, one system for everything, which is still is now a reality that can't be reached for a lot of people. And so data unification is truly now available with a very easy way within the new world of that we live in. And I think in order to think about this, you got to think about something that's quite unique in the marketplace, i.e., it's not a data warehouse, it's not a data lake, but rather what we refer to it at Member Junction is the AI data platform. And so what I always say is that we're beginning with the end in mind. So we have a place whereby which you can certainly unify your data, connect all the points that you care about, again, not just structured, but unstructured, as well as other data sets you can get from various sources in order to leverage AI. The whole idea is you need a tool not only to park data and connect it into the confines for hyper-personalization, but you need a way by which once it's there that tools that you enlist to help, i.e. AI, is actually able to be efficiently using that data. And so that it can make some of these impossible decisions possible, untap content that is basically tapped right now, and remove some of the innovation barriers you have because the data is not unified. And that's the whole point of having an AI data platform, which begins with the end in mind. So why is that all important? Why is data so important for that goal, if you will, to reach? In simple terms, you got to think of AI as a kind of a personalization engine, if you will. It's more high quality unified data means that you can get to more members to understand their behaviors, their preferences, and all their interactions that you have so that you can basically tailor it. It's one thing that you can take a kind of a normal LLM that we're all comfortable as an individual, but in order to do enterprise level AI, sophisticated personalization exercise, you really need to have a way by which that you have tools inherently in it that recognize that the end is the AI components, and you need tools inside of it that allow you to bring it to life so that AI can vectorize meaning, put numeric values behind the content so that it can be retrieved and tag it for retrieval for certain aspects of your use cases that you desire. So the other thing of it is data, again, ownership of your data and unification of data. It goes back to oftentimes when people would come to me and say that they want to drop kick their system because the data doesn't have quality. The same thing holds true with regards to AI. If you don't have good quality, you don't have unified data, you're not going to have the adoption of AI internally as an enterprise without those factors resolved. So in order for this to all take place, you have to have clean, accurate, quality data in a unified place, and so that AI can actually leverage it. If you have clean data, unified data, most likely your team, your organization is going to see the true value to actually start to invest in this whole AI model that we're in today, this whole universe that we're in today. And I think that's really critical as we move forward. Next slide. So kind of piggyback on the AI adoption. And I guess when we talk about personalization in general, it goes back to my initial thought where I said that it's predictive. So when we get to hyper personalization, it's not about just the data that they've done historically so much. It's like once we can get the AI involved to understand the data, understand sentiment, and actually really start to compare and actually look at data from a very high processing perspective with multitudes of different data sets, you can actually start to predict what people will do so that you can actually push out communications or know before you do something that is more likely to have an impact that's going to be great. So it's really amazing what you can do today through and with the AI agents that are out there. But AI agents really can and do very well with not only structured data, but unstructured data. We talked about those just a minute ago. So if you have publications or papers, call for papers, insights, or information that might be stored in images or things of that nature, you can actually start to use AI to actually get down to true understanding and much greater granularity now than you ever have before. So structured and unstructured data, which oftentimes structured has been, somewhat finite and you could get your handle around it to a degree, but the unstructured data really starts to really change the game, if you will, and using that in an unstructured for for unstructured data in personalization or hyper personalization can be a game changer for organizations. So you can take a lot of just not just the historical stuff, say, for example, if they register for an event to predict things that they may want to go to before, but also like what they talked about after you got a survey from them after the event, marry that up with maybe what they participated in terms of their knowledge and understanding about topics or what they're talking about in the community side of your systems that you have, meaning online communities or even social communities, to actually understand with great granularity and actually precision to do the things that you want to do with it in much greater detail than you ever have before. So really all these things, all that we talked about leads into why AI agents need it. They need it because it matters the most than ever before. Next slide. I think this is really cool, and this kind of coincides with, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the things that, PropFuel does very well and elegantly is basically the progressive profiling of information, if you will, over time. And I go back to this point where I talked about when we deal with a lot of different systems, if you will, you have a real challenge with basically the collection points only asking certain things, which is fine because you don't want to inundate with them the same thing every time. And you can't ask them for everything you want to know at one setting or one time or one transaction that they do, whether that's on the events registration page or sign up for, you're going to ask different things. So over time, you've got to get enriched data so that you can provide quality and depth to it. And progressive profiling allows you to collect data through stages, gathering key data points over time. And this strategy really helps to avoid overwhelming members, as I mentioned, but it leads to a much richer, completer profile, if you will, over time. And then all the AI does, the algorithms, if you will, they thrive on that data. And the more accurate the data, obviously, the better results, but the more accurate those personalization and interactions can happen. And progressive profiling really enhances the depth of the data available because it enables AI to deliver that highly tailored content that you may be seeking to send out or underscoring experiences that those members or your constituents should go to, and thereby increasing basically member engagement. And oftentimes, as we see in many of the stats, is basically engagement and satisfaction as well. So it's really critical to pull in and complete out the data. And one aspect of tools, if you have availability to do it, is embed in the practices of more progressive profiling so you can enhance those relevance of those AI agents to do and understand the interactions that are critical. Next
Yeah,
slide.
and we love progressive profiling at PropFuel. It's one of the things we do, but it's not just PropFuel. So here's an example of a feature in HubSpot. If any of you use that, and I think most of the marketing automation platforms have something like this now. But if you have HubSpot forms where you're asking people, hey, can you sign up for this event or whatever you're collecting information on, they have a concept called progressive fields. So you can say, here's 5 fields that I want to ask. In this case, they're asking for phone and address, but only if I don't already have it. So you're not going to ask for it every time. But maybe you have a webinar sign up form and over the course of the year, someone's going to sign up for 6 or 7 webinars. You can ask them for their phone if you don't have it. If you already have it, it won't include it on the field. It's just an opportunity to take advantage of those times when you're in front of people to collect a little bit more data every time and never inundate them with that, one 15 item form that they're not actually going to set out. So if you have a lot of forms as part of your kind of member experience, I would look at a tool like this to take advantage of those opportunities. Another example, this is a use case for PropFuel. And what PropFuel is doing in this case is we're not tying into an existing interaction, but we're creating a new one, in this case over email. So this is a client of ours who sent out a question over email. What scientific topic is of most interest to you? Multiple choice question. They click on it, they get an answer. From this one email that went out to their 27,000 members, they get a 16% response rate. So it's 4,300 people who they now know what their primary scientific interest is. They wrote that back to Netforum. They now have this. They can deliver content to these people at that time. You just clicked on something. Oh, you're interested in clinical infections and vaccines. Here's some content that would be of interest to you. But they also have this in their profile so that as they do other marketing campaigns, they're taking that into account. And again, like our example earlier of the, marketing the course only to the people who are super interested in that area. You can do the same thing for content. You can do the same thing for shaping your newsletter. You can use that throughout the member experience. Another example that's often overlooked, but is a really good way to get more data on people and their experience, is just adding customer satisfaction score questions to places like your order forms, post-event surveys. This gives you that kind of pulse on how people are doing and how you're doing, but it also surfaces these opportunities for two things. One is identifying people who you need to follow up with. There's no more personalized experience you can offer than personally calling someone after they had a bad experience and asking how you can make that right. That's the kind of ways that you can wow your members with your service that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if you don't know that they had a bad experience. It also opens up an opportunity for just more unstructured data, like Chad was talking about. If you ask the question and then ask them, hey, what went wrong? Then you can do all sorts of, it used to be that getting, thousands of open text responses was almost not useful, because who's going to sit there and read 1,000 paragraphs worth of feedback and then be able to accurately distill that into actionable steps. But with AI, that's now something that's super easy to do and get value out of. So there's tons of platforms that you can do CSAT with. Here's an example of a client who does that through PropFuel, just embedding this form on their page, and they got 36,000 answers over the course of the year. Of each of these are discrete data points on individuals that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise if you didn't just ask the question.
And the last area that we kind of addressed, if you will, or need to, as an organization that's thinking about doing or leveraging AI for hyper-personalization, is you got to go back to what we talked about. We got to clean up the data. And I think a chat came up just a minute ago about the fact that there's tons of duplicates, if you will. Yes, absolutely. And especially in most systems today, there is going to be a duplicate check. But the truth is that, again, it goes back to the reality that most people are leveraging using multitude of different systems in order to clean the data. They have to do that in multiple different systems that may or may not have the tools. So the whole idea, again, of the value of unifying data really boils that down to the fact that once you have it in one place, then you leverage and use the data management tools in that one junction point, if you will, that can clean it up so that you have accurate targeting and segmentation that you can do. AI today can transform this whole idea of what we call ETL, or extract, transform, and load process. And when you throw in AI into the mix, it takes what, for most people on the traditional ETL process, which is manually handled, if you will, it removes some of those aspects, the challenges, if you will, that deal with data cleansing, and really allows you the opportunity to get away from having to, eyeballs that basically, put what they call transformation rules. I don't want to get too knowledgeable, but you have to have rules. You got to have understanding of the fields. You may export it out and try to do the manipulation in Excel. Where now you basically, in order to clean up that data, once it's in one point, you're doing it once and deploy it out to where you would like to, as opposed to individually having to go through each database and clean it up. You have a place by which you can ensure that your association accurately has the ability to know with certainty, integrity, that it indeed is the right, accurate information before you go out and do communications and whatnot. So AI works, again, very well at studying data. I mentioned earlier the technical vectorization of information, if you will. The data allows to put numeric arrays of information, or numbers on the data sets down to every level that you categorize and tag it with. And then it allows it to kind of similarly look at the data so it can clean it up very quickly. And you don't have this ability, and often, obviously in AMS or CRMs, LMS, et cetera, again, an AI data platform or other vehicle by which you have this vectorization capability will allow you to remove that obstacle much better than you ever have before. So you enhance the understanding, be comfortable and confident that it's right, and then basically make sure before you send out communications that you've got the right email, that you've got the right person, you know exactly what they care about, so that you're not spending useless money and time and effort to send out a message to someone who doesn't care about, or for, you know, if we're using snail mail, send out a message via postcard or email about an event, for example, and you got the wrong address because they were all in the wrong place. You can leverage what used to take, you know, a lot of time and effort with these systems, and use AI to clean up things in a matter of, you know, really hours, as opposed to what could have been days, sometimes weeks, and maybe never done at all. In fact, I have a really cool study we did the other day, whereby which we took a organization that was basically an association that was wanting to clean up records before they ported all their information into a new system. They wanted to keep the old system data, but they wanted to clean it up before they moved it to a new CRM. And so they took 400,000 records. They used AI. They used AI ETL process, and was able to clean up over 40,000 duplicates within, you know, hours, which likely would have taken them an exorbitant amount of time. Now, there's other data cleansing exercise too. You could look at, I've read and studied and feel comfortable with saying that Bumblebee is a good source too. They have a good tool where they can clean up data, append data. There's Apollo.io. But if you're really thinking AI forward, if you will, and I think that having a place by which you take ownership responsibility is a good starting point. And then all this hyper personalization can become a reality if you've addressed that. Next slide.
Yeah, so there's actually a good question in here I think is worth addressing. So, isn't it dangerous to upload your association data to AI? Do you have a safe, secure way to do this? And I think the way, and Chad mentioned this earlier, there's different types of AI. So, one type is the consumer grade AI, ChatGPT being the like the big thing that started the boom that people are most familiar with. They offer a free version of ChatGPT. You can go use it. Part of the trade-offs for that being free is they are going to then take the data you put into that and use it to improve their algorithms and improve their models. So that's where the kind of conception of it's dangerous to upload private data into AI comes from. And that if you're using a free consumer tool or even some of the cheap slash paid tools, they explicitly can use the stuff you put in there to train their models. They try not to have, cross melding of, your private data coming out, but that is definitely a risk, and that's something I wouldn't do. I wouldn't upload a spreadsheet of your members' personal information into ChatGPT, especially if you're not on a paid version. However, there's a different level of AI. So there's the paid versions of the consumer tools. So for example, if you pay for ChatGPT, buried in the settings somewhere, there is a toggle to say, hey, don't share my information with the model. Keep this private. And that's ultimately a contractual agreement between you and the platform that they're not going to do that. They're not going to commingle your data. But then there's an even deeper level, which is where kind of the vendors that, PropFuel uses this, Member Junction uses this, your association can sign up to use this, but there's developer platforms that all these AI tools run, where essentially we have a contract with OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, whatever, that says, hey, you are not permitted to use this data in any way. This is our data. We're going to use your system to process it, but you don't have a license to do anything with this data. So that's a question that I would ask a vendor is, what is your contractual relationship with your AI providers and how does that all work? If you want an even deeper level of privacy, there are open source models that you can run on your own hardware. So your association could set up, their own server somewhere that doesn't deal with a third-party AI provider at all. So based on kind of the data governance policies you have and the sensitivity of the data, that's kind of the three layers that you can go to from, starting with the least secure, least private of the public consumer tools, getting all the way down to like literally having a box in your closet in your office that's running the AI and it's not going out anywhere outside of that. So definitely a worthwhile consideration, but it's not a blanket like this isn't safe. As with most things, it's all about the design of the system and how you're using things.
Yeah, and
Um, yeah.
I'll add that basically on that, Cameron, is that obviously people are using those models, the free models, and even paid for an organization. But when we talk about when you want to start leveraging very sensitive data that's found in all these different proprietary or internal enterprise systems you have to have a place by which you park it that you have, enterprise grade security levels on that data. Yes, the large language models will come into play, and oftentimes, obviously those are going to change. You need to have a system that allows you the opportunity to feel that they're flexible enough to change out what's the latest and greatest, and have different security controls on their own open public LLM information that might be fused into doing something in your data. But the aspect of enterprise AI usage really goes back to the idea of the AI data platform, whereby which you have a place to store things that you truly do not want to have exposed outside of your own purview of information. Because again, it goes back to the goal of your organization should be looked at like your data. And so you need to make sure that it's housed in a secure fashion. And so I certainly would frown upon using, public LLMs for a lot of sensitive data that you're probably going to want to get insights on or leverage for personalization.
Thanks. So we've got about 12 minutes left. The big question with these types of presentations is always, okay, what's next? And broadly, the answer in all of these presentations today is, well, AI. You just AI it, right? And AI is the reason why we keep talking about AI is a true shift in the capability of what you can do. You can do things with AI that weren't possible 2 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. But we don't want to just say, it's AI and then kind of hand wave. There's a lot of things you can do with AI. So I'm gonna pass it back over to Chad, and he's gonna walk through a very specific example of something that Member Junction is able to do with a client using AI to deliver an outcome. So Chad, why don't you walk us through that, and then we'll wrap up with any other questions that you guys have.
Absolutely. I think before I jump into the specific, I want to talk and give some idea and color and underscore some of the things that are possible today with personalization as it relates to AI. And as you just stated very eloquently, AI in itself is just a tool. You got to have a way by which to think about, the data is really going to drive any impact and success. And so the things that you can do once you have your data house in order is basically do the things that you see on the screen here. So we can recommend events that truly resonate with members with and through AI personalization engines like we have or others have built that truly resonate with members so that you can kind of drive behavior and satisfaction, if you will, to gain higher attendance. And we've done that multiple times. You can facilitate professional networking by connecting members and peers to one another. So if you have a very domain specific customer or a member base and you want to make sure that they know each other before a big conference and you want to share that out and you want to message them about that, you can do that with a data that's unified as well, along with personalization engines that are available through AI. You can also, I think is really cool, and a lot of people, obviously association drive a lot of their revenue through educational formats, education plans and whatnot. You could actually deliver personalized education paths that are, adept at career aspirations. You understand what they're talking about, what they care about, maybe things they've purchased with you, like books or publications, et cetera, that they've read, and you could really engage them and actually boost basically their professional growth through and with personalization engines within AI today. The other thing that's the final thing I like to talk about is like volunteer and advocacy. Think about all the possibilities you have when you can actually marry up data, understand them, and actually match so that you get better participation and enthusiasm from people that really care about a specific mission, vision, or goal that y'all have that you want to communicate that they get involved in. And finally, is the advocacy side. Obviously, government relations and advocacy is very big for a lot of associations, and there's certain tools for that. But you can tailor campaigns that basically people care about, that basically allow you the opportunity to engage and amplify your voice. So there's a lot of use cases that are out there that are actually quite at the reach of most organizations you don't even know about that you could do. And these are some of the ones that I see and we've done through and with Member Junction, leveraging data that the organization has to do that. Next slide basically is actually a specific one. And I want to highlight this, and you can actually, it's the American Geophysical Union. It's a leading organization basically for comprised of researchers, scientists. They're focused in on a domain, basically Earth and space science, if you will. And they kind of had this real big challenge, if you will, with connecting members. Their association is, again, it's comprised of these specific scientific individuals, if you will, and they're maybe a little bit different in terms of how they connect with people. And they don't, a lot of people have been around for a long time, but they wanted to connect more people so that they could, how the adage of iron sharpens iron. They wanted to connect people because they knew that they would see a synergistic connection between a lot of people that have not ever even known that others were out there like them, so that they could get more engagement coming to the event, but also on site. Through this exercise they did, they were looking for ways by which to connect people they never had before. Traditionally, they kind of used what you would think. They went to the AMS, they looked for information, their profiles, they went to old data that was in attendance data. But all those are kind of, and I went back to this earlier. We talk about that was more like personalization. They want to really take it to the next level and do hyper personalization, where they could actually use sentiment analysis. They wanted to include information about what people cared about. So they went to, what did they speak on? What were some of the things that they downloaded in towards to basically, of interest, if you will. And so they had a lot of different data sources they pulled together, and then they basically did a campaign by which they leveraged that information to send out targeted emails over the course of 7 weeks to execute this. And what they saw was really is quite impactful, and we're still moving through and doing different things with this, but they saw metrics that you see on the screen right here, which are quite impactful. I can't say with, it's really hard sometimes when you think about marketing in terms of how justifying. I like the idea that it increased basically the potential for people to pick up emails. But the truth of the matter, the proof in the pudding, so to speak, was when people came back and they started talking about the event, they said, I never would have known this person had I not had that email that you sent to me. That changed our work, that changed our experience dramatically. And we want this more. And when they went to their website, we were able to plug in that people, when they went to their profile on their website, that they were actually being pushed to connect with other people before the conference, which was another great way by which to connect people. They also obviously saw by using emails, each time they would like segment into like, specific courses or classes that were available at their conference. And so they saw an uptick in basically registrations as well. And so all this to say, I think it was a dramatic success by obviously unifying their data that they had kind of elusive or untapped before. And they were able to employ AI through a tool called Rex, which we've developed, that allowed that to transpire. And it basically puts in vectors on information. Within Member Junction, which is the AI data platform, we're able to use AI sophisticated tools and utilities that we're able to match, and based on similarity checks through AI, able to see the likelihood that they would be aligned with or similar to. And it really changed the game in terms of how they look at things. We have some clients that are looking at other things on membership renewals, the people whereby which they're about to lose, and they're seeing great impact on how they're scheduling out, segments of emails and things of that nature. But it's really up to y'all's use cases, quite frankly. And it's really unlimited in terms of what you want to put into play. But you need tools, obviously. And I think going back to the initial this conversation, you need to deal with the world that we live in, which is the data challenge that's going on. Last slide. Yep, there we are. So all this to say, I hope this was enlightening. I hope that this was basically something that you felt like you gained in terms of educations and insights into what is possible. I think we live in a world right now whereby which we're inundated with this whole idea of AI. Most people are thinking the confines of this public available free AI that's available, but you really have today the realization of capability to go through and actually take hold of this in your own individual associations in a meaningful, measured, and really transformative way to actually take your organization to the next level. And I hope that you heard about some tools and some things that would change, perhaps helping you guys in what you do day in and day out. And we want to thank you for your time.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, the emails are here, QR codes. Hang around a couple more minutes if there's any questions. And I think the demo links will be in the chat as well. But thanks for joining us and have a great day.